The Afghan mountains stood silent under the pale morning light as 12 Army Rangers moved through the rocky terrain like shadows. Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera led the patrol, his weathered face scanning the ridgelines above them. The mission seemed straightforward enough. Locate and neutralize a high-value target who had been coordinating attacks on supply convoys in the region. Private First Class Danny Chen checked his radio one more time, the static crackling softly in his earpiece. "Comms are still good, Sergeant," he whispered into his throat mic. The young soldier from California had been with the unit for 8 months now, long enough to know that quiet missions like this one often turn deadly without warning. Sergeant First Class Rodriguez, the team's medic, adjusted his pack as they moved. Inside were enough supplies to treat combat wounds for all 12 men, but he hoped they wouldn't need any of it today. The intelligence report suggested their target would be lightly guarded, maybe 3 or 4 fighters at most. Rodriguez had seen enough action in his 6 deployments to know that intelligence was often wrong. The target compound sat in a valley below them, surrounded by mud brick walls and overlooking a narrow river. Through his binoculars, Rivera could see 2 guards walking the perimeter, their AK-47s slung casually over their shoulders. The building looked exactly like the photos from their briefing, a single-story structure with a flat roof and small windows. According to their intel, the target was inside planning another convoy attack. "Alpha Team, this is Bravo," came the voice of Sergeant Thompson over the radio. He was positioned on the eastern ridge with 3 other Rangers, providing overwatch for the assault team. "I count 2 tangos on the south wall, 1 more on the roof." "Copy that, Bravo," Rivera replied softly. "Charlie Team, what's your status?" Sergeant Williams responded from the western position. "Charlie Team in position. No movement on this side of the compound." The plan was simple. Alpha Team would breach the front entrance while Bravo and Charlie provided covering fire from the ridges. Get in, secure the target, and extract within 20 minutes. Rivera had executed dozens of similar raids, and this one felt routine. At precisely 0800 hours, Rivera gave the signal. Alpha Team moved down the slope toward the compound walls, their boots finding purchase on the loose rocks. The morning air was crisp and thin at this altitude, making every breath deliberate and controlled. Behind them, their sniper Corporal Anderson had his rifle trained on the guard walking the south wall. Everything went wrong in the first 30 seconds. As Alpha Team reached the compound wall, the wooden gate exploded outward in a shower of splinters and smoke. The explosion knocked Private Chen backward into the rocks, his rifle skittering away across the ground. Rivera felt the concussion wave hit him like a physical blow, his ears ringing from the blast. "IED! IED!" someone shouted over the radio, but the words sounded distant and muffled through the ringing in Rivera's ears. Automatic weapons fire erupted from multiple positions around the compound, the distinctive crack of AK-47s mixing with the deeper sound of a PKM machine gun. This wasn't a lightly defended target. This was an ambush. Anderson tried to return fire from his sniper position, but muzzle flashes erupted from windows and rooftops throughout the compound. There weren't 3 or 4 enemy fighters. There were dozens. The Rangers had walked straight into a carefully planned trap. "Alpha Team, fall back to secondary position!" Rivera shouted into his radio, grabbing Chen by his body armor and dragging him behind a large boulder. The young soldier was dazed from the explosion, but appeared uninjured. Rivera could see blood on Chen's face from flying debris, but the kid was still moving. Sergeant Rodriguez low-crawled over to them, his medical pack slung across his back. "Sergeant, we've got wounded," he called out. "Jackson took shrapnel in his leg and Morrison's not responding to radio calls." The machine gun fire intensified, bullets chipping away at the rocks around them. Rivera could hear the distinctive whine of rounds passing overhead, close enough to make his skin crawl. Through the chaos, he tried to establish radio contact with his other teams. "Bravo, team! What's your status?" he called into his radio. Thompson's voice came back strained and urgent. We're pinned down, Alpha. They've got at least 2 machine gun positions up here, and we're taking accurate fire from the compound. We can't move without getting cut down. Charlie team, respond. Rivera tried next. Williams came back immediately. Charlie's in position, but we can't get clean shots. They're using the women and children as shields down there. I count at least 15 military-age males with weapons. Rivera's heart sank. The intelligence had been completely wrong. Instead of a simple raid on a lightly defended target, they had walked into a hornet's nest. Worse, the enemy had clearly been expecting them. Someone had set them up. The firefight continued for another hour, with neither side able to gain a decisive advantage. The Rangers were well-trained and disciplined, but they were vastly outnumbered and caught in an exposed position. Every time one of them tried to move, accurate rifle fire forced them back into cover. Corporal Anderson managed to eliminate 2 enemy fighters from his sniper position, but the return fire was so intense that he had to relocate twice. Each time he moved, it took precious minutes to find a new shooting position and re-establish his fields of fire. Alpha, this is base, came a voice over Rivera's radio. It was Lieutenant Colonel Hayes back at the forward operating base. We're monitoring your situation. QRF is spinning up but won't be on station for another 2 hours minimum. 2 hours. Rivera looked around at his men sheltering behind rocks and in small depressions in the ground. They were running low on ammunition, and the enemy seemed to have an endless supply. 2 hours might as well be 2 days. Private Chen had recovered from the initial blast and was now returning fire with controlled bursts from his M4 rifle. The young soldier had good instincts and kept his head down between shots. Rivera was proud of how the kid was handling his first major firefight. "Sergeant!" Rodriguez called out from 30 meters away. "Morrison's hurt bad. Took a round to the chest. I need to get to him, but there's too much fire." Rivera could see Specialist Morrison lying motionless behind a cluster of rocks. The soldier wasn't responding to radio calls. And Rodriguez was right. There was too much enemy fire to reach him safely. Rivera made the decision that would haunt him for months afterward. "Negative, Doc. Too dangerous. We hold position until the situation changes." It was the right call tactically, but Rivera could see the anguish in Rodriguez's eyes. As a medic, every instinct told him to reach his wounded comrade. As a soldier, he understood the order to stay put. The sun climbed higher, and the temperature began to rise. The Rangers were trapped in an exposed position with limited water and diminishing ammunition. Rivera tried to raise other units on the radio, hoping someone else might be in the area, but got no response. They were on their own. Around noon, the enemy fire slackened slightly. Rivera used the lull to take stock of their situation. Alpha Team had 8 men still capable of fighting, though 3 were wounded to varying degrees. Bravo Team reported 4 men in good condition, but running low on ammunition. Charlie Team had all 4 men operational, but also concerned about their ammo supply. "All teams, this is Alpha," Rivera transmitted. "Ammunition check. Report your status." The responses were not encouraging. Most of the Rangers were down to their last few magazines. Anderson, the sniper, had exactly 12 rounds remaining for his rifle. At their current rate of fire, they would be out of ammunition within another hour of heavy fighting. Rivera studied the compound through his binoculars, looking for weaknesses or opportunities. The enemy fighters moved with discipline and coordination, suggesting they were well-trained rather than local militia. Their weapons appeared to be in good condition, and they had clearly prepared this ambush carefully. "Sergeant," Chen said quietly, "do you think they knew we were coming?" Rivera had been wondering the same thing. The timing was too perfect, the ambush too well coordinated. Someone had provided the enemy with detailed information about their mission, possibly including their planned route and timing. "Focus on the fight, Chen," Rivera replied. "We'll worry about the rest later." But privately, Rivera was already calculating odds and options. They needed help, and they needed it soon. The quick reaction force was still more than an hour away. assuming they could even locate the trapped Rangers in time. The enemy had shown no inclination to withdraw or negotiate. As if reading his thoughts, a voice called out from the compound in accented English. "American soldiers, you are surrounded. Surrender now and you will not be harmed." Rivera didn't bother to respond. He had seen what happened to captured American soldiers in this region. Surrender was not an option, regardless of their situation. The afternoon wore on with sporadic exchanges of gunfire. The Rangers conserved their ammunition while the enemy seemed content to keep them pinned down. Rivera began to suspect they were waiting for something, perhaps reinforcements of their own, or maybe just nightfall when they could maneuver more easily. At 1500 hours, Morrison stopped responding entirely. Rodriguez confirmed over the radio that he could no longer see any signs of life from the wounded soldier's position. The team's first casualty hit everyone hard, but they maintained discipline and continued to return fire when necessary. "Alpha, this is base," came Hayes' voice again. "QRF is encountering mechanical problems. Estimated time of arrival now pushed back to 1800 hours. 6 o'clock. 3 more hours of holding out against overwhelming odds with almost no ammunition remaining. Rivera closed his eyes and did the math. It was going to be close, very close. As evening approached, the enemy fire intensified again. Rivera could see muzzle flashes from at least 20 different positions around the compound. They had walked into something much bigger than a simple high-value target raid. This felt like a carefully orchestrated trap designed to capture or kill an entire American unit. The sun was beginning to set behind the western ridgeline when Rivera heard something that made his blood run cold. Vehicles. Multiple vehicles approaching from the north, the direction they had used to infiltrate the area. Either it was the quick reaction force arriving early, or it was enemy reinforcements arriving to finish the job. Through his binoculars, Rivera could make out 3 pickup trucks moving along the dirt road toward the compound. His heart sank when he saw the heavy machine guns mounted in their beds. Not American vehicles, enemy reinforcements. "All teams, we've got company," Rivera transmitted. 3 technical vehicles approaching from the north. This is about to get much worse. The Rangers prepared for what they all knew could be their final stand. With almost no ammunition left and enemy reinforcements arriving, their situation had moved from critical to hopeless. Rivera began to mentally compose the radio message he would send to his family through the forward operating base, just in case they didn't make it out. That was when they heard the first shot. It came from somewhere high on the northern ridge, the sharp crack of a high-powered rifle echoing across the valley. One of the machine gunners on the approaching vehicles slumped forward over his weapon. A few seconds later, a second shot rang out, and another enemy fighter fell. "Who the hell is that?" Thompson asked over the radio from his position on the eastern ridge. "That's not one of ours." Rivera trained his binoculars on the northern ridgeline but couldn't see the shooter. Whoever it was had found an excellent concealed position and was engaging the enemy with precision fire. A third shot dropped the driver of the lead vehicle, sending it careening off the road into a drainage ditch. The enemy fighters in the compound immediately shifted their attention toward the new threat, reducing the pressure on the trapped Rangers significantly. Rivera watched in amazement as the unknown sniper continued to engage targets with mechanical precision. Every shot seemed to find its mark. "Sergeant," Chen said quietly, "whoever that is, they just saved our lives." Rivera nodded, still trying to locate the mysterious shooter through his optics. The shots were coming from at least 800 meters away, an impressive display of marksmanship under these conditions. But who was it? There were no other American units reported to be in this area. As the gunfire continued from the northern ridge, Rivera noticed something else that made him pause. The shooting pattern, the timing between shots, the way targets were prioritized, it all suggested a level of training and experience that went beyond ordinary military marksmanship. This was the work of a professional, someone with specialized training in long-range precision shooting. But the biggest mystery was yet to come. As Rivera watched the unknown sniper work, systematically eliminating enemy threats and providing the covering fire that might allow his trapped Rangers to survive, one question echoed through his mind. Who was their mysterious savior? The unknown sniper's fourth shot shattered the windshield of the second technical vehicle, causing it to swerve violently before rolling down an embankment. Rivera watched through his binoculars as enemy fighters scrambled for cover, their previous confidence evaporating under the precise long-range fire. "Whoever you are up there, keep shooting," Rivera muttered under his breath. The pressure on his trapped Rangers had decreased dramatically as the enemy fighters redirected their attention toward the northern ridge. For the first time in hours, his men could move without drawing immediate fire. Sergeant Rodriguez seized the opportunity. "Alpha, I'm moving to Morrison," he called over the radio. Before Rivera could respond, the medic was already sprinting across the open ground toward their fallen comrade's position. The mysterious sniper seemed to anticipate Rodriguez's movement. As two enemy fighters emerged from the compound to engage the running medic, rifle shots from the ridge dropped both targets before they could fire. Rodriguez reached Morrison's position safely and immediately began working. "Doc, what's Morrison's status?" Rivera asked over the radio. After a few tense moments, Rodriguez responded. "He's gone, Sergeant. Took the round through the heart. Nothing I could have done." Rivera felt the familiar weight of command settle heavier on his shoulders. Morrison had been with the unit for 2 years, a steady soldier who never complained and always did his job. Now he was coming home in a flag-draped coffin, leaving behind a wife and infant daughter in Georgia. Another shot from the ridge brought Rivera's attention back to the immediate situation. The unknown sniper had eliminated the heavy machine gunner on the remaining technical vehicle, effectively neutralizing the convoy that had been approaching to reinforce the compound. Corporal Anderson, the unit's designated marksman, had been trying to locate the mysterious shooter's position for the past 10 minutes. "Alpha, I still can't get eyes on our guardian angel up there," he reported. "Whoever it is knows how to stay concealed." The enemy fighters in the compound seemed to be having the same problem. Rivera could see them pointing and gesturing toward the northern ridge, but their return fire was scattered and ineffective. The unknown sniper had chosen an excellent position that provided both concealment and multiple escape routes. As the afternoon shadows grew longer, the sniper continued to work methodically through the enemy positions. Each shot was carefully placed, taking out key targets and disrupting the coordinated defense of the compound. Rivera counted at least 8 confirmed kills, all from extreme range and under combat conditions. "This guy's a professional," Anderson observed over the radio. "Look at the target selection. He's going after their leaders and heavy weapons operators first. That's advanced tactical thinking." Rivera nodded, though Anderson couldn't see him. The unknown shooter was clearly familiar with military tactics and understood how to systematically dismantle an enemy position. But who had this level of training and happened to be in exactly the right place at exactly the right time? Private Chen had been monitoring the radio frequencies, hoping to intercept communications from their mysterious benefactor. "Sergeant, I'm not picking up any transmissions from the ridge. Whoever it is, they're maintaining radio silence." This added another layer to the mystery. Professional military snipers typically maintained constant communication with their units during engagements. The fact that this shooter was operating completely silent suggested either extreme operational security or that they weren't part of any official military structure. At 16:30 hours, the sniper made a shot that caused Rivera to whistle in appreciation, despite their dire situation. One of the enemy fighters had been using a narrow window in the compound's main building to engage the Rangers with accurate rifle fire. The target was barely visible. just a small portion of his shoulder and the barrel of his weapon showing through the opening. The shot came from over 900 meters away and struck the fighter precisely in the exposed shoulder, spinning him away from the window and eliminating that firing position. It was the kind of shot that required not just exceptional marksmanship skills, but also intimate knowledge of ballistics, wind conditions, and trajectory calculations. "Jesus!" Thompson said over the radio from Bravo Team's position. "Did you see that shot? That's not human." But Rivera was beginning to suspect it was very human indeed, just not the kind of human they were expecting. The more he watched the unknown sniper work, the more convinced he became that they were dealing with someone from the special operations community. The precision, the tactical awareness, the target selection. It all pointed to advanced military training. The enemy seemed to reach the same conclusion. Rivera watched through his binoculars as a group of fighters emerged from the compound and began moving toward the northern ridge in a flanking maneuver. They were going to try to locate and eliminate the sniper who had been tearing apart their ambush. "Unknown shooter, you've got enemy movement toward your position," Rivera called out on the general military frequency, hoping their mysterious ally was monitoring communications even if they weren't transmitting. Whether the warning was received or the sniper had spotted the flanking movement independently, the response was immediate and devastating. 3 rapid shots in succession dropped the lead elements of the flanking party, forcing the survivors to take cover in a rocky outcropping halfway up the ridge. The precision of those rapid shots impressed Rivera even more than the long-range work. Engaging multiple moving targets in quick succession required a different set of skills than careful single-shot marksmanship. Their mysterious benefactor seemed to possess both capabilities in abundance. As darkness approached, Rivera's radio crackled with an update from base. "Alpha, this is base. QRF is finally en route, ETA 20 minutes. Can you hold out that long?" Rivera looked around at his remaining Rangers. They had taken casualties, were nearly out of ammunition, and had been under enemy fire for most of the day. But the unknown sniper had changed the tactical situation dramatically. The enemy fighters were now focused on the ridge threat rather than the trapped Rangers. "Affirmative, base. We can hold for 20 minutes, Rivera replied. It wasn't entirely true. They were hanging by a thread, but the mysterious sniper had given them a fighting chance. The next 15 minutes passed in relative quiet, as both sides seemed to be waiting for something. The enemy fighters remained in their positions, but weren't actively engaging the Rangers. The unknown sniper had also ceased fire, though Rivera assumed they were still in position and watching. Then, at exactly 1847 hours, Rivera heard the distinctive sound of rotors in the distance. The quick reaction force had arrived, flying in 2 Black Hawk helicopters loaded with reinforcements and medical personnel. The enemy fighters heard the aircraft approaching as well. Rivera watched through his binoculars as they began to emerge from the compound, apparently planning to withdraw before the American reinforcements could establish a cordon around the area. That was when the unknown sniper resumed firing. The shots came rapidly now, not the careful single shots of earlier in the day, but a sustained engagement designed to prevent the enemy escape. Rivera counted at least 15 shots in 2 minutes, each one finding its target and dropping fleeing fighters before they could reach the safety of the surrounding hills. "My God," Rodriguez said over the radio, "whoever that is, they're not letting anyone escape." The Blackhawks swept in low and fast, their door gunners adding their firepower to the engagement. But Rivera noticed that the helicopter crews were being very careful about their fields of fire, avoiding the northern ridge where their mysterious ally was positioned. Someone had obviously briefed them about the friendly sniper in the area. As the quick reaction force fast-roped from the helicopters and began to establish a perimeter, the unknown sniper fired one final shot. Through his binoculars, Rivera saw the last enemy fighter fall at the edge of the compound, just meters from reaching a concealed escape route. Then, suddenly, everything was quiet. The QRF soldiers moved through the compound systematically, clearing rooms and securing the area. Rivera and his surviving Rangers were finally able to leave their exposed positions and link up with the reinforcements. The medics immediately began treating the wounded while others established casualty collection points and prepared Morrison's body for evacuation. "Sergeant Rivera?" called out a young captain from the QRF. "I'm Captain Martinez. Are you in command here?" "That's right, sir," Rivera replied. "My team's been pinned down since 0800 this morning. If it weren't for the sniper on that ridge, we'd all be dead." Captain Martinez looked confused. "What sniper? We weren't told about any friendly sniper support in this area." Rivera pointed toward the northern ridge. "Someone's been up there for the past 4 hours, taking out targets and keeping the enemy off our backs. Professional-level shooting, at least 20 confirmed kills. I figured it was one of your guys." "Negative, Sergeant. We don't have any sniper assets deployed in this sector. Are you sure about the location?" Rivera felt a chill run down his spine. If the QRF didn't know about the sniper, and there were no other American units in the area, then who had been saving their lives all afternoon? "Anderson," Rivera called to his team's designated marksman, "take Martinez up there and see if you can find any trace of our mystery shooter." The two soldiers grabbed night vision equipment and began climbing toward the position where the sniper fire had been coming from. Rivera watched their progress through his binoculars as they worked their way up the rocky slope, using hand signals to communicate in the darkness. After 30 minutes, Anderson's voice came over the radio. "Alpha, we found the shooting position. Multiple brass casings, good field of fire down into the valley, but no sign of the shooter." "Any evidence of who it was?" Rivera asked. "Negative, Sergeant. Whoever it was cleaned up after themselves pretty thoroughly. Professional-level fieldcraft. But there's something else up here you need to see." Rivera felt his curiosity growing. "What is it, Anderson?" "There's a small pile of rocks arranged in a specific pattern. Looks like a message." Captain Martinez had been listening to the radio conversation with growing interest. "Describe the pattern, Corporal." Anderson's voice came back puzzled. "It's 5 rocks arranged in a perfect circle, with a single rock in the center. Never seen anything like it before." Martinez exchanged glances with Rivera. Neither man recognized the significance of the rock arrangement, but it was clearly intentional. Someone had taken the time to leave a calling card. As the Rangers prepared for evacuation, Rivera couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious sniper. The shooting had been too precise, too professional, and too perfectly timed to be a coincidence. Someone had been watching them, had known they were in trouble, and had possessed both the skills and the equipment necessary to intervene decisively. But who? And why had they remained completely silent throughout the entire engagement? The flight back to the forward operating base was quiet, except for the steady rhythm of the helicopter rotors. Rivera stared out into the darkness, his mind replaying the day's events. 12 Rangers had been trapped and facing certain death or capture. Against all odds, 11 of them were flying home alive. Morrison's body lay secured in the back of the helicopter, wrapped in a poncho and strapped down for the flight. Rivera would have to write the letter to his widow, explaining how her husband had died in service to his country, but at least he could tell her that Morrison's sacrifice hadn't been in vain, that his teammates had survived because someone had been watching over them. The question that haunted Rivera as they flew through the night was simple. Who had been their guardian angel, and why had they chosen to remain anonymous? Little did he know that the answer to that question would prove more surprising than anything he could have imagined. 3 weeks later, Staff Sergeant Marcus Rivera sat in the intelligence briefing room at Bagram Airfield, staring at a classified file folder marked with red warning labels. Lieutenant Colonel Hayes had called him in for what he described as a follow-up discussion about the ambush that had claimed Morrison's life and nearly wiped out his entire patrol. "Sergeant, what I'm about to show you doesn't leave this room," Hayes said, settling into the chair across from Rivera. "We've finally identified your mysterious sniper." Rivera leaned forward, his curiosity overriding the exhaustion that had plagued him since returning from the mountain valley. For 3 weeks, he had replayed that firefight over and over in his mind, wondering who had saved his rangers and why they had vanished without a trace. Hayes opened the folder and slid a photograph across the table. Rivera found himself looking at a woman in her early 30s with shoulder-length brown hair and intelligent green eyes. She wore civilian clothes in the photo, but something about her posture and expression suggested military training. "Chief Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell," Hayes explained. "Navy SEAL, assigned to Naval Special Warfare Development Group. One of only 3 women to complete SEAL training in the past 5 years." Rivera studied the photograph more carefully. The woman looked ordinary enough, someone you might pass on the street without a second glance. But Rivera had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving, especially in the special operations community. "How did you identify her?" Rivera asked. Hayes pulled out another document. "The rock pattern your man Anderson found on the ridge. It's a signature mark used by a small group of elite snipers. 5 rocks in a circle represent the 5 basic elements of long-range shooting: range estimation, wind reading, ballistics calculation, trigger control, and follow-through. The single rock in the center represents the perfect shot." "And Chief Mitchell uses this signature?" "She invented it," Hayes replied. "During her time at sniper school, she developed it as a way to mark successful training exercises. Word spread through the special operations community, and now several snipers use variations of it." Rivera processed this information slowly. A female Navy SEAL sniper had been operating in their area, completely unknown to the local command structure, and had single-handedly saved his entire patrol. The questions were multiplying faster than the answers. "What was she doing there?" Rivera asked. "Our intel said no other American units were in that sector." Hayes hesitated before responding. "That's where this gets complicated, Sergeant. Chief Mitchell was supposed to be on leave in Germany visiting family. According to official records, she was nowhere near Afghanistan when your patrol was ambushed." "So what are you telling me? She was AWOL?" "Not exactly," Hayes said carefully. "We've pieced together her movements through various intelligence sources. She flew from Germany to Pakistan using civilian transport, then crossed the border illegally using routes known only to certain elements of the intelligence community." Rivera felt a chill run down his spine. "She was running a black operation?" "Unknown," Hayes replied. "What we do know is that she was tracking the same high-value target your patrol was sent to eliminate. She'd been in the mountains for over a week when your team walked into that ambush." The pieces were starting to come together in Rivera's mind. She knew it was a trap. "That's our assessment," Hayes confirmed. "Mitchell had been conducting surveillance on the compound for several days. She would have seen the enemy forces building up in preparation for your arrival. The question is why she didn't warn you directly." Rivera thought about this for a moment. Maybe she couldn't risk compromising her own mission. If she was operating off the books, any communication with our unit might have blown her cover. "Possibly," Hayes agreed. "Or she might not have known about your mission until you were already committed to the target." Hayes pulled out another photograph, this one showing the compound from an elevated angle. Red circles marked various positions around the building and surrounding area. "This image was taken by a reconnaissance drone 2 days after your firefight," Hayes explained. "We count at least 37 enemy dead in and around the compound. Your patrol accounted for maybe 6 or 7 of those kills. The rest were all precision rifle shots from extreme range." Rivera whistled softly. 37 kills in one engagement. That's exceptional. Chief Mitchell holds the unofficial record for longest confirmed kill by any American sniper, Hayes said. 2,100 meters in Iraq, 2019. But more importantly, she has a reputation for operating independently when she believes the mission requires it. Meaning? meaning she has a history of going off script when she thinks command is making tactical errors. Brilliant soldier, exceptional skills, but not always good at following orders she disagrees with. Rivera began to understand why Mitchell might have been in Afghanistan without official authorization. If she had intelligence about the high-value target that contradicted the official assessment, she might have decided to take matters into her own hands. "Have you located her since the firefight?" Rivera asked. Hayes shook his head. "She vanished completely. Left no trace after eliminating the remaining enemy forces in your area. We've checked with German authorities. She never returned to her supposed leave location. For all practical purposes, Chief Mitchell has disappeared." This revelation troubled Rivera more than he expected. The woman who had saved his men's lives was now missing, possibly in enemy territory, with no official support or backup. Despite her unauthorized presence, Rivera felt a sense of responsibility toward someone who had risked everything to help his Rangers. "What's the official position on her actions?" Rivera asked. Hayes leaned back in his chair, looking uncomfortable with the question. "Officially, she was never there. Your patrol was saved by enemy fighters who turned against each other, creating an opportunity for you to survive until the QRF arrived." "That's bullshit, sir." "Yes, it is," Hayes agreed quietly. "But it's the story that keeps everyone out of trouble. Mitchell's chain of command doesn't have to explain why one of their people was operating in Afghanistan without authorization. Your chain of command doesn't have to explain why our intelligence was so completely wrong about the target compound. And the intelligence community doesn't have to answer questions about how enemy forces knew exactly when and where to expect your patrol." Rivera absorbed this information with growing frustration. "So Chief Mitchell gets thrown under the bus?" "More like she gets erased from history," Hayes replied. "The official record will show that your patrol encountered unexpected enemy resistance, but fought their way out through superior training and determination. No mention of outside assistance." Rivera stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the busy flight line where helicopters and transport aircraft moved constantly. Somewhere out there, possibly still in Afghanistan, was a woman who had saved 11 American lives without asking for recognition or reward. Now the military bureaucracy was pretending she had never existed. "Sir, I want to find her." Hayes looked up sharply. "That's not a good idea, Sergeant. Chief Mitchell is clearly operating outside normal channels for reasons we don't understand. Getting involved could compromise whatever mission she's actually running. Or she could be dead in a ditch somewhere because she sacrificed her own security to save my Rangers," Rivera replied. "Either way, I think we owe her more than bureaucratic amnesia." Hayes was quiet for several minutes, apparently weighing his options. Finally, he reached into the folder and pulled out a single sheet of paper. "This is the last confirmed intelligence we have on Mitchell's location," he said reluctantly. 3 days ago, Pakistani border guards reported an American woman crossing into the tribal areas near Quetta. Description matches Mitchell, but the sighting hasn't been confirmed. Rivera studied the intelligence report. Quetta was a known haven for Taliban and al-Qaeda leadership, one of the most dangerous places in the region for an American operative. If Mitchell was there, she was either pursuing a high-value target or in serious trouble. "I want to put together a small team and go after her," Rivera said. "Absolutely not," Hayes replied immediately. "You're not Special Operations, Sergeant. You don't have the training or authorization for that kind of mission." "Then get someone who does," Rivera insisted. "Don't let her disappear just because it's politically convenient." Hayes stood up and walked around the desk, placing a hand on Rivera's shoulder. "Marcus, I understand how you feel. This woman saved your life and the lives of your men. But sometimes the best way to help someone is to stay out of their way." Rivera wasn't satisfied with that answer, but he recognized the futility of arguing with a lieutenant colonel. The meeting was over, and officially, Chief Petty Officer Sarah Mitchell had never existed. But as Rivera walked back to his barracks, He made a decision that would have surprised Hayes. He was going to find Mitchell, with or without official approval. She had risked everything to save his Rangers. The least he could do was return the favor. That evening, Rivera called in favors with contacts throughout the intelligence community. He reached out to former Special Operations soldiers who now worked as contractors, to intelligence analysts who owed him for past cooperation, and to anyone else who might have information about American operatives in Pakistan. The picture that emerged over the following days was both impressive and terrifying. Sarah Mitchell had not been acting alone in Afghanistan. She was part of a small, unofficial network of elite military personnel who took on missions that regular channels couldn't or wouldn't handle. They operated in the gray areas between official policy and practical necessity, doing the work that needed to be done regardless of political implications. According to Rivera's sources, Mitchell had been tracking the high-value target for months, building intelligence that contradicted the official assessment. She knew the compound was heavily defended and that any standard military operation would result in heavy casualties. Her presence in the mountains had been intended to eliminate the target through precision sniper fire, avoiding the need for a direct assault. Rivera's patrol had complicated her mission by walking into the trap she had been trying to prevent. Instead of completing her original objective, Mitchell had chosen to save American lives, sacrificing her own mission and operational security in the process. But the story didn't end there. Rivera's sources indicated that Mitchell had successfully eliminated her original target during the chaos of the firefight. The high-value target had been among the enemy dead found in the compound, killed by a precision rifle shot that official reports attributed to random gunfire during the battle. In other words, Mitchell had accomplished both missions, saving Rivera's Rangers and eliminating her assigned target, all while maintaining complete operational security. It was a feat that impressed even the most experienced special operations veterans. The question now was whether she had survived her subsequent mission into Pakistan. Intelligence reports suggested she was hunting another high-value target in the Quetta area, but details were scarce and contradictory. Rivera made one final phone call to a former Delta Force operator named Williams, who now worked private security in the region. Williams had been trying to track Mitchell's movements through his own network of local contacts. "Found something you need to see," Williams said without preamble when Rivera reached him. "Can't discuss it over the phone. Meet me in Dubai next week if you can get leave approval." Rivera managed to arrange 5 days of personal leave and flew to Dubai, his curiosity and concern for Mitchell overriding any concerns about unauthorized involvement in special operations activities. Williams met him at a coffee shop in the International District, looking like any other American businessman traveling through the Middle East. But Rivera could see the alertness in his eyes and the way he continuously scanned their surroundings for potential threats. "Your sniper friend is alive," Williams said without preamble. "Saw her 3 days ago in Islamabad, getting medical treatment at a private clinic that caters to Western operatives." Rivera felt a surge of relief. "Was she hurt badly?" "Gunshot wound to the shoulder, some shrapnel damage to her left leg. Nothing life-threatening, but enough to slow her down. She completed her mission in Quetta, took out a Taliban commander who'd been coordinating attacks on NATO supply lines." "Where is she now?" Williams smiled grimly. "That's the interesting part. She's headed back to Afghanistan. Seems there's another target she wants to eliminate before she disappears completely." Rivera felt his blood run cold. "She's going back?" "Gets better," Williams continued. "The target is the same intelligence officer who set up your patrol for that ambush. Mitchell's been tracking the leak for months, and she finally has enough evidence to take action." The implications hit Rivera immediately. Someone in their own command structure had provided the enemy with detailed information about their mission, directly resulting in Morrison's death and nearly getting all of them killed. Mitchell was planning to eliminate a traitor, but doing so would make her a fugitive from her own military. "We have to stop her," Rivera said. Williams shook his head. "Too late for that. She's already crossed the border, but there's something else you should know." Williams pulled out a small envelope and slid it across the table. Rivera's name was written on the outside in precise handwriting. "She asked me to give this to you if I ever made contact, said you'd earned the right to know the truth." Rivera opened the envelope with trembling hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered with the same precise handwriting. "Sergeant Rivera," the note began, "by the time you read this, I'll have completed my final mission in Afghanistan. The person responsible for your ambush will no longer be a threat to American forces. I know this creates problems for everyone involved, but some things are more important than careers and politics. Your Rangers fought bravely that day, and Morrison's death was not in vain. Take care of your men, and remember that sometimes the right thing to do isn't the same as the legal thing to do. The rock pattern on the ridge was my way of saying thank you for being the kind of soldiers worth saving. If you ever find yourself in an impossible situation again, look for the 5 stones in a circle. Someone will be watching. Semper Fi, Sarah Mitchell." Rivera read the note twice before the full meaning sank in. Mitchell was planning to eliminate the traitor responsible for the ambush, knowing it would end her own military career and possibly her freedom. She was sacrificing everything to ensure that no other American patrols would be betrayed by corrupt intelligence. "When did she cross the border?" Rivera asked. Williams checked his watch. 12 hours ago. She's probably already in position by now." Rivera knew he should report this information to Lieutenant Colonel Hayes, should let the official channels handle the situation. But he also knew that Mitchell had earned the right to complete her mission without interference. The traitor had American blood on his hands, and the military justice system would never be able to touch him through normal channels. Instead, Rivera folded the note carefully and put it in his pocket. Sarah Mitchell, the mysterious sniper who had saved his Rangers, was about to become a ghost story told in the special operations community. Officially, she would never have existed. Unofficially, she would become a legend. 3 months later, Rivera received word that a suspected intelligence officer had been found dead in his quarters at Bagram Airfield, killed by a single precision rifle shot through his window from over 1,000 meters away. The investigation concluded that he had been eliminated by Taliban snipers, though no evidence of enemy infiltration was ever found. Rivera smiled when he read the report. Somewhere out there, Sarah Mitchell was still watching over American forces, making the hard decisions that others couldn't or wouldn't make. The mysterious sniper had become exactly what her note had promised. A guardian angel for soldiers facing impossible odds, and if another patrol ever found themselves trapped and desperate, they might just find 5 stones arranged in a perfect circle, with a single stone in the center, marking the position of someone who refused to let good soldiers die for bad intelligence. The question, "Who is she?" had been answered, but Sarah Mitchell's story was far from over.